So, to everybody watching this video, I'm just gonna come straight out and say it. This might genuinely be my longest video ever, because there is a lot of shit to cover right now. What more are they gonna do with this series? There's, like I said, too much to cover. It's probably just gonna be me ranting a whole lot. There's barely gonna be any cuts. I have I have nothing to say after watching episode 10. Let's get into it. So immediately off the bat, I'm only covering episodes 6 to 10, part 2, and forgive me if I'm stuttering over my words because I've literally just seen what happened in episode 10, and trust me, we are going to get to episode 10. But starting from episode 6, it's cool to see that the characters ended up in Spain for the Sakai Takai, and they went to, I think it was Thailand, for the tournament itself. It's cool to see the pacing of this, and I love how every character is already fleshed out. You don't need to introduce, they introduced new characters here and there, which I really liked. They had new characters like that tall one called Axel, I think his name was. They have Zara, who in real life is a Taekwondo champion, so casting an actual actor who knows this stuff is a great move. Of course, all the senseis, we already know the majority of them. They had some for comedic relief. They even had an Irish team in there. At one point, they were fighting the Irish team with Irish music playing in the background. And I know it's supposed to be a serious fight, but I was just laughing my ass off. So, yeah, we established a lot of people in that. And while we're on that subject, I know it's a big jump. Let me just jump from episode 6 to episode 9 because I thought I knew who that was, I knew who that was, and I was reaffirmed who it was. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but as a wrestling fan, and if people watch my videos, they know I'm a huge wrestling fan, isn't it weird to see wrestlers in shows that you love? This right here, ladies and gentlemen, is Britt Baker. She's in AEW. And trust me, I rewinded to this part so many times because I couldn't believe my eyes. I'm like, there is no way, there's not a hope in hell that they actually put Britt Baker into this. This must be a woman who looks identical to her. Maybe it's her twin. I went as far to pause episode 9, search up what the name of the sensei is, as she's called Sensei Oksana, apparently. And she literally doesn't have a bio, she doesn't have anything. The sensei of the Russian team, the main guy, he has a full bio. She does not. So I literally had to wait till the credits. And sure as shit, I was right. Britt Baker portrays Sensei Oksana for the Russian team. A lot of people are probably going to fast forward through this part, me talking about wrestling, they don't really care. But I am gushing over it, because if you know me, you know wrestling is my hobby. So Britt Baker from AEW literally portrays the Sensei character, even as a cameo character, it's still really cool to see. Now, jumping back into the main episodes, like I said, I love how all the established characters are just continuing on with their stories. Dimitri, I must admit, he dove back into his typical season 1 and season 2 antics of being that annoying little nerd, constantly bragging about going to MIT. I am so happy Hawk finally stepped up in episode 7, I think it was, or episode 8, where he's literally just like, dude, shut the fuck up about going to MIT. Nobody cares. Which, can you blame him? And as for Hawk and Robbie, I really like both of them. I like how they're already established and they're just focused on the fights. Samantha LaRusso, they had to give her a tease of another romance storyline. Why? Why do the writers keep doing this? This is the last season. It's not the time to not only introduce new characters, which you could probably write off really easily with a one-off fight, that's fine. But it's not the time to tease a new relationship, let alone a romance. So, other than Sam being a great character, I didn't like the romance tease. As for the senseis, Johnny, Daniel, Chosen being the funny one, it's great. Miguel having to flesh out literally everything, with his mother even having a baby. And trust me, my heart jumped when I saw that bloody bed with Carmen not being on that, and I was reassured. Oh, I almost stopped right then and there. And while we're on the subject, I know I said it's not the time to introduce new characters and new romances. We already know both these characters. I don't think he's on this poster over here. Chosen and Sensei Kim, being a couple, is that what you want to call this? A violent couple who go from enemies to somewhat lovers to genuine friends by episode 10. Sure, the writers are literally pushing Cobra Kai off a cliff at this point, but in a very good way, and I'm all for it. I think we also need to talk about the fact that they utilize the music perfectly, as usual. I love the Cobra Kai soundtrack and the Karate Kid soundtrack. And speaking of Karate Kid, the CGI on Mr. Miyagi in episode 10 during that nightmare for Daniel LaRusso, perfection. Pure perfection. Rest in peace, Pat Morita, the actor for Mr. Miyagi. Of course, he died in 2011, and not being able to obviously replicate the actor himself 13 years later, they did a fantastic job with the CGI there. Now, I know a lot of people are going to expect me to talk about the fights during this review. Personally, I'm going to hold off until a later time. A video is coming very, very soon where I rank the best fights in Season 6 Part 2 from Episode 6 to Episode 10. So just hold off on that list. It is definitely coming, but I won't be talking about it in this review. Something I'm also going to address really quick, and it is cool to see Terry Silver return in Season 6, adding that little extra spice onto the new season. It's great seeing all the characters return. But like I said, something I need to address real quick, the constant butting heads and undoubtedly annoying at times rivalry between Daniel LaRusso and Johnny Lawrence, going from friends to enemies to friends to enemies to friends to enemies, back to friends and then back to enemies, and then resolving their issues and somehow back to friends again, almost fighting on a beach somewhere and then making up within 10 minutes because of Miguel coming over and helping them resolve their issues. It's annoying, and I genuinely hope that now they are friends as of episode 10, that this just stops here and they remain good for the rest of the season. And with all that out of the way, this isn't even half of what I've wanted to say in this review. There's a lot more I wanted to cover, but I've kept it concise just for the review itself. And let's get into Season 6, Part 2, Episode 10. Holy shit, is there a lot to cover? So let's do it. So we were expecting that there would be somewhat of a finale to the tournaments in Episode 10. However, one of the dojos gets disqualified for drug testing, so that sensei comes back and knocks out the, I guess, officiator of the entire tournament, and everything leads to an all-out war. So John Kreese pursues Terry Silver, who is then pursued by Johnny Lawrence, who is then pursued by Daniel LaRusso, who is then cut off by the bully from Karate Kid 3. I'm surprised they brought him back somehow, and they get into a fight, and then Daniel fights other students, which is technically adults beating up kids if you think about it. And long story short, Quan, the bully, and the villain, well, primary villain of Season 6, or one of the main ones, gets a hold of John Kreese's knife, tries to use it in a fight, and dies. You didn't mishear me. The Karate Kid universe, finally, and I'm not saying this in a bad way, they somehow finally killed a character during a fight. It wasn't even inflicted on him. It was a self-suicide with Kreese's knife. And to end it on not only that, but this. With no music playing and the last line just being, "Cut the feed," before this literally appears. February 13th, we are going to see the end of a phenomenal series, and the episodes can't come soon enough. Holy actual shit. And you know what, to cap it all off, this series is absolutely phenomenal, and this literally gets a 10 out of 10 from me. That's it. I'm not even doing my regular outro. I give part 1 a 9 out of 10, this one literally one-ups it, gets a 10 out of 10, and personally, I hope they push the release date of part 3 just a little bit forward, because we have 1,000 questions and 0 answers. This was badass as usual.